What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod. Once again, giving you your quarantine pop culture check-in this week. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, I want to start off the show today with just a general check-in. How are you doing, man?
Difficult times, man. It's not fun, not a good weekend. Really terrible time in our country, and it's tough to reflect on frivolous things like the entertainment industry. That's what we're normally going to do, but yeah, it's hard to focus on that this time. It's not good.
Yeah. Talking about TV and music today, no movies, but usually we'd be talking movies as well. Feels just a bit, I don't know, unimportant, and it is. In general, this is a distraction for us, hopefully a distraction for other people, getting you all engaged in conversation around things that are not nearly as important as the societal issues, specifically, for the Black and African American community right now, and people of color around the nation who are protesting against systemic racism within the criminal justice system and police brutality all throughout the country. Kind of sparked by this most recent murder of George Floyd, but very high-profile murders of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery over the last couple months, as well as, I keep thinking about that video of that guy in the park with the lady with the dog and her calling the cops on him, and
Yep.
It's not nearly to the same level as obviously murder, because luckily that man did not die, but seeing how that woman reacted and the fear that man had to live with in that moment, knowing that he was, just being Black in America, could potentially die for asking someone to leash their dog when the dog's supposed to be leashed. It's hard to find the words to say a lot of the time. And I think I just, during this time, find myself wanting to just listen to the experiences of those who are speaking out and sharing their experience, doing my own, reading and research on how to be a better ally for these communities, and checking my own unconscious biases in all these situations, and just working to be better in general, trying to advocate and speak out when I can, use my own privilege, because luckily I can do that. I can speak up and not be afraid that I'm going to be reprimanded, or I don't have to be afraid of a cop for my skin color. So I don't know, it's kind of where I'm at. How about you?
Yeah, I just been thinking people should stay mad, Once tensions die down, don't just go back to normal, because it's going to happen again. You should stay mad, understand the problem, and do everything you can to help try and fix something that's systemic. And that's more than just voting. That's more than just sharing something that sounds nice on your Instagram story. It's more than that, and it's inconvenient and uncomfortable, especially when you're white. And you just got to get over that, and we got to move forward. And we will see what happens regarding the specific officers in question regarding George Floyd. If that doesn't go well, I don't have high hopes that something's suddenly going to change. But if that doesn't go well, we might be right back here in a few months or a year, whenever that happens, and we'll see then. But in the meantime, stay mad and get involved.
Absolutely. It's hard to transition to anything from this, and especially to transition to Lil Boat 3. So we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna jump into it. But to any of our listeners, if you're feeling heavy and you're a loyal listener and you don't want to check in this week, that's fine by us. Feel free to reach out if you need. You have our Twitter. I think you see both of us on Twitter if you need. I know I'm willing to hear you out or listen at this time if you need. So feel free to check in with us. But yeah. Yachty dropped a new album, Dave. Lil Boat 3. How are we feeling about this Lil Yachty album? It's fun. I'm laughing because I did not expect to be talking about this today, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is where quarantine has gotten us, where we're going back to the well.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, to Yachty's credit, he was out there in Atlanta peacefully protesting, I believe alongside some other famous people. I believe he was with Malcolm Brogdon of the NBA, or Jaylen Brown. I forget who he was with, but he was with other people. And that's something really cool to see, because this is Yachty's album release week. He should be all about his bag, promoting his music, during an already hard time to promote oneself, obviously with quarantine. But he wasn't. He didn't really give a shit. And I respect that. And Lil Boat 3, man. We didn't talk about the last mixtape he dropped, Nothing to Prove, the second one in 2018. It was a lot like the first one in 2018, Lil Boat 2, which we did talk about. And, coming to this point, I think Yachty is someone where I generally appreciate Yachty's presence and charisma as like a personality and brand more than I do most of his music. But I think after listening to Lil Boat 3, there are things to like about Yachty, and he's had some decent features of late. I think he's truly, like right now, still a less is more artist. I think he goes a longer way when he's collaborating with people on his own songs or he's a guest on someone else's song. But yeah, sometimes Yachty, he doesn't stand out when he's on his own and doing the full-on quality control trap music that he does sometimes. It's nothing special, It's like you're on the same label as Migos. You don't have to try and make some Migos songs because that's not your strength. So yeah, it depends what he's doing. Yachty, he's always been hit or miss.
Yeah, with Yachty, it's listening to this album, I feel like the times I appreciate him most is mostly when he's doing the hooks for the songs, but not necessarily when he's doing the verses. I think kind of like you said, the less is more a bit with him. And the songs that I really found myself enjoying on this, and I thought there were some decent moments. Obviously, TD is a standout, and we'll talk about that in a second. But like Oprah's Bank Account, when he's just kind of grooving on that hook, and he just sounds really good, and allowing Drake to kind of shine on this. I think that's when he's at his best. Some of these other moments, like I don't know. I found a lot of it, I guess, just forgettable in a lot of senses. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing is, he doesn't vary it enough. He doesn't vary these songs up enough, in my opinion, to make anything really stand out. And I don't see him as like the type of lyricist where he's just going to be able to get by on his bars. So it's really going to have to be the catchiness. And when everything sounds the same, or at least that's kind of how I felt about it, it just kind of left me feeling meh. What stood out to you, if anything, on this?
Yeah, I think Oprah's Bank Account is kind of like the perfect distillation of what we want from Lil Yachty, where that is a melodic hook from Yachty. It's a funny, airy sentiment, the song. The music video, which is a long video, it's hilarious, where he's literally dressed up as Oprah, and when he's interacting with Drake and DaBaby as themselves, and he does this. I think my favorite part is at the end where he's like talking to DaBaby, and he's like, "When you say let's go, where are you going?" Like I think he's a really self-aware guy, and sometimes it really comes across in the music. I think Oprah's Bank Account is a great example of that, and that song is doing really well for him, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So I think that's like the clear highlight in terms of like his strengths, but he really got some great features on TD, didn't he? A$AP Rocky. Yeah. Tyler the Creator, and Tierra Whack. That was quite unexpected. I like that a lot.
And if I was going to tell you he's going to get those three on a track with him, who would your money have been on to really crush it? Probably Tyler or A$AP. It's like Runaway. But no, Tierra Whack bodies that track. Like she comes on at the end and just is like an absolute jolt of lightning. It's unbelievable. And I just feel like it just made me want to go back and listen to her stuff again after hearing that. I wanted to go back and just run through Whack World. I mean, it's only 15 minutes, so we can do that very quickly. But I can't wait to hear more from her. So this track, if nothing else, got me excited for Tierra Whack's album whenever that's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, other than that, like I thought Pierre Bourne's beat on Range Rover Sports Truck was awesome. Just out there, like a Pierre beat is. But and Little Keed actually I thought sounded pretty good. But Yachty's hook was super repetitive and dull, so song kind of falls apart there. Yeah, I mean, like, and there's moments where he's like fine, like on Split, whole time, like the second single, he's fine on that, and like Black Jesus, stuff like that. But I'd rather listen to some of his recent guest spots. I think he's pretty consistent with that. Get It Bussin', the Tato song, he's awesome on that. Crunk Ain't Dead Mob, the Duke Deuce remix, Yachty I think is really cool. He actually has good couplets once in a while, and almost like interesting flows. It just doesn't seem to come across on a lot of his own songs. It's usually when he's a guest. So I don't know why that is, but he's kind of consistent with that, right? His best moments on stuff like Broccoli and I Spy and Mixtape by Chance. That's kind of been his MO from the whole time. He always seems to shine on other people's songs. And heck, he wrote Act Up for City Girls. So like he can write a good trap song. He just doesn't seem to make him well for himself for whatever reason. So
yeah, it's
shout out Lil Yachty. Still only 22.
That's actually pretty crazy. He's only 22. There's so much room for him to grow and maybe try some things. I feel like he's kind of destined to fall into that like 2 Chainz like lane though, where he just kind of drops in sometimes and will either sing like crazy hooks that are really catchy or have these moments where he just kind of like comes on a track and it's just this breath of fresh air. But I never go back to a two Chainz album really. Like and we've reviewed some 2 Chainz albums, so that some of it's pretty good. But for the most part, I just see him as like a role player in a lot of ways. I feel like Yachty's kind of in that same lane, but maybe I'll be wrong on that. We already put one of the songs, TD, which we talked about, onto our Nowstalgia Best of 2020 playlist. So check that out on Spotify. Give us a follow if you like. Speaking of those people who are like bit players, I don't see Freddie Gibbs in that lane, because I see Freddie Gibbs as just top-notch rapidy rap. And dropping this newest album, Alfredo, with the Alchemist, or Alchemist, I guess the producer, man, this was just a delight to listen to, in my opinion. It was kind of funny. I listened to this before I listened to Lil Boat, and I should have just flipped those because this was such a more pleasurable listen. But it was also nice to kind of go back and revisit these after listening to Lil Boat, which I was kind of just like bored by. And I found this to be really engaging and just smooth. Like I felt like this album was just really, really smooth, really blending. I think that like soulful, jazzy, hip hop sound with what Freddie Gibbs does best, which I think is just delivering bars like all over this album. How are you feeling about Alfredo?
Yeah, I agree. I think Freddie's talent's pretty well known at this point as just a technical master. He's been doing this for so long. He's like, I think he's in his late 30s at this point. He's been at it a long time, usually mainly as an independent artist. So we kind of know what to expect from Freddie. And he's also collaborated with Alchemist before. Him and Currency's collab album Fetty from 2018 was produced all by Alchemist. And I think this time, once again, this is 10 just really choice Alchemist beats, and Freddie meshes really well with that. And he's just really introspective yet blunt with his lyricism, which I've always really liked. And yeah, I don't know if there's really any skips on this. 10 songs, 35 minutes. It's definitely worth multiple listens. And he also has a bunch of great guest spots from Rick Ross and Conway and Benny the Butcher from Griselda, Tyler Creator. Shit sounds great.
Yeah, Scotty Beam was a song written, or a song that sounds like it was actually just made for Rick Ross to feature on. Like it feels almost like it can be paired with Devil with a New Dress really well, which I think we've talked about a bunch of times. Is probably my favorite Ross feature ever. But yeah, just the way that this album kind of glides together, tracks kind of run into each other, and the way that the features all feel just very much in place. I was really impressed with just the way that this was crafted. And I also really dug, and probably because we just finished The Last Dance, there were a lot of like 80s references and kind of running like bowls references throughout. There's a Michael Jordan, I think, line in either in 1985, the first track. There's a line about Jordan. I think there's a line about Scottie Pippen in one of the songs too, and it just felt like he was really pulling from some earlier sound on this and some earlier references. So I dug that. Any tracks that really stood out to you or that you felt were particularly good?
Yeah, so I really liked Scotty Beam as well. I thought Frank Lucas was awesome, really well titled.
Yeah.
Track name, of course, shout out American Gangster, and Benny really fit well. All the guests really fit well, and Tyler I thought was really funny on something to rap about, mispronouncing Mykonos and then catching that at the end. What do you say? The beat sounds like the boat I haven't bought yet.
Yeah.
Just the natural hilarity that Tyler can bring really easily. effortlessly. Yeah, I mean, there's really no skips. They're all great. They're all great.
Yeah, this is a great album. I would you say best hip hop album of the year?
Ooh, yeah, probably.
It's up there
Yeah,
for me.
I think so. Trying to think. My favorite stuff this year has been this, Chef G, and yeah, I mean, I know Conway dropped Lulu early this year, which we didn't review, which was also produced by Alchemist. Everyone really liked that. We didn't review that. Yeah, I think so. This is probably the best right now.
Blame It On Baby up there too for you?
Rockstar might go number 1 in a week or two, but no, Blame It On Baby is not up there. Check that review.
It's been, I feel like, a lighter year hip hop wise. I feel like there's a lot of like young and up and coming rappers that put out a lot of
my most listened to is Eternal Take. Obviously that'll be my most listened to for sure, but like, you know, Suga, we like a lot of that from Megan. Jay Alec was a event more than something anyone's gonna revisit. Little Baby's My Turn is hella overrated. We did not like Eminem. We didn't need a Lil Wayne's a millionth album like Future. We can pass on that. I guess Pop Smoke, Meet the Boo 2 earlier in the year, and Polo G. I love Polo G. So yeah, that's probably it.
Waiting for that yearly Brockhampton album to drop and bring
coming.
us the goods. But yeah, I think Alfredo. Also, Dave, explain the title real quick.
Yeah, so funny. So I had someone point this out to me. Alfredo, we have The Alchemist, and Freddie Gibbs, Alfredo. Al and Fred. How about that? Super simple yet effective.
Yeah, I did not get it either, but definitely a great album title and a great album. So it's fitting. Another album that I was really impressed with, unsurprisingly, was Lady Gaga's Chromatica. You know, when Gaga over the last couple of years has really kind of like taken a shift within her public persona and just her musical style. You know, she released, was it Joanne back in
2016.
2016 now? Wow.
The fall.
And then obviously A Star Is Born, which I don't know if we'll say is like a Gaga album necessarily, but it basically is like her on most of the tracks.
Yeah. I mean, the Star Is Born songs like Shallow and some of the other popular ones, they did fit along with where Gaga's career arc was going with Joanne, right? Like she left that first phase of the dance pop after art pop. Brief detour at Tony Bennett aside, we have Joanne and The Star Is Born, which is more subdued music, much more acoustic music, and trying to be more introspective as well. And I think those are, and Joanne in particular is probably an album that was, I think, over criticized at the time because it was different. Like I think there's highlights on that, even if it's uneven. But it kind of gets a rep for being like a miss because it wasn't super popular, relatively speaking, for Gaga standards.
Right.
But either way, you know, Chromatica starting as soon as we heard that first single, "Stupid Love," you could tell that this was a hashtag quote unquote return to form for Lady Gaga. You know, she's been in the game like 12 years at this point, so she can have that kind of career arc now.
Yeah.
And it is cool to see her go back to dance pop and how dance pop has changed from between now and 2009, but I don't know if it's quite as a return to everything she used to do. So it's an interesting album. I've been thinking about it a lot.
No, I definitely have ran it back a couple of times. You know, it's the sort of thing where I feel like I catch something new every time, and it's also, I think, interesting how Gaga picked and chose the features on this, and also kind of crafted this. I felt like. And this was a critique I saw on Pitchfork that I thought made a lot of sense, that, you know, it's kind of split up into 3 phases, but I'm not sure if the sequencing of the tracks makes a lot of sense. It is produced in a way where everything kind of bleeds into each other and the tracks transition really well, but just it feels a bit uneven at times. And I think there's parts of the album that are just so memorable, and then parts that are very light in terms of the songs that rise to the top for me on this. But overall, I was just really struck with how much this brought me back to like mid 2000s dance EDM. Like this is like there's a lot of house on here, and if you look through the producer list, there's a ton of EDM artists: Skrillex, Medion, a couple of the guys from Swedish House Mafia are all over this. So there's a lot of influence throughout this, so it makes sense that it would sound like this. But man, I guess I just was not totally expecting it to be this much of like a I don't know, breath of 2005 for me.
Right. I think that's the key distinction is, like you said, all that house, this Euro pop, this reminded me. The first thing I thought, I was like, what is this, David Guetta?
Yeah.
This is like it's clearly like a relic of EDM. It does not sound like any modern electronic music at all. And I mean, the biggest collaborator, producer-wise, would be Blood Pop, who's on like 2/3 of the songs, I think. And she'd worked with him before. He's worked with everyone in pop, really. And that seems to be the muse on this one. Max Martin does pull up for one little jaunt, songwriting-wise, on Stupid Love. That's their first collab, actually. But yeah, Blood Pop seemed to be the main architect of this. And it's interesting because, again, dance pop, I'd say, is popular, but this is very different than Dua Lipa, which is a much, I think, lighter, airier dance pop that is much more happy. Like Gaga, despite this production, there's a lot of, still introspection and negative themes on Chromatica. I think she's gotten much more open about her past trauma, being abused at a young age and stuff like that. That's definitely coming through on here. It's definitely darker than what some of her contemporaries have been doing of late. But yet, I was disappointed in one aspect of this because I wanted it to be, and this is just my own issue with expectations, but I was wanting it to be more like Gaga, more weird, more strange. Like my favorite era of Lady Gaga is obviously like the Fame Monster. I love that shit. And she's kind of wacky on a lot of those songs too, right? And this, now she's in her like mid 30s. I think she was 34 or whatever. She's had a lot more experience, but it almost seemed like she kind of played it safe on this, which is really strange to say about something that sounds like it's 10 years old production wise. But that was just kind of how I felt about it, and in a sense that is disappointing, but I still think there's a lot of good highlights on this and cool moments. And I think one of the highlights is probably Rain on Me, which is weird because it's a song that's so triumphant and dancey, and it's supposed to be like a drag anthem, a pride anthem, like Born This Way, yet it's like track 4, track 3 or something. It really feels like that would have been a great song to sequence at the end of Chromatica, yet it comes so early. And it's kind of a landmark song, though. I think it debuted at #1 today, first week.
But the crazy thing to me is, Lady Gaga I see as, in my opinion, probably the best pop artist from the last 2 decades, just in terms of art, the way she's been able to vary her sound and execute in all these different ways, and also the way that she's gone from being this person who kind of had to have a gimmick, in a sense that she was this like weirdo who dressed weird and her music videos were so out there, and has been able to recapture her identity, which was a struggle for her, and that she's openly talked about, and just really wonderful, her story. But she gets bodied on that track by Ariana. That's an Ariana Grande song in my book, and that's the thing. Is like,
well,
go ahead.
For me, it was just weird to hear it because they don't really harmonize at all.
No,
like this is supposed to be a landmark Clash of the Titans for pop, right? You have the Little Monsters and the Arianators joining forces to stand the fuck out of this song, and it went #1. It's very popular, but it's like, here's the Gaga part, here's the Ari part. Gaga,
Rain
Ari,
on me. Like,
right.
That's the Gaga part. Like, let me hear you belt it out. Let's go toe to toe.
Right, and like I think towards like the end, like the choruses at the end, it's a little, they harmonize a little bit, but it kind of just feels like it's mixed together. I really don't think they record this together. But yeah, I think Ari really does body it. Like even on the outro, the outro of the song, she sounds awesome too, and that's a really cool video. This is definitely a dancey song. The song will be around a long time, and it's actually pretty notable because it's the it's Gaga's 5th number one, Ari's 4th, but it's a debut at number one versus rising up the charts. And it's putting Ari in some really esteemed company in terms of actually doing that all the time. And I think Gaga now sets the record for like length of time between debuting at number one. It's like 9 years now or something. So obviously records change all the time with streaming.
Right.
And I think Rain on Me is obviously still a win. And where I was disappointed with the other big super moment would be Sour Candy, which is the collab with the Blinks, Blackpink.
Yeah.
And I mean, that flips What They Say, which has been sampled by a million popular songs like Truffle Butter, for example. But like, that's a song that's really just a Blackpink song for the first 90 seconds. And then Lady Gaga shows up. And it's also kind of, again, another safe song. It's not Blackpink doing anything that wild like they've done before on their biggest songs. So that was another weird one for me.
Yeah, I didn't think Sour Candy worked so well. And actually, when I think about the duets in terms of what worked, I think her with Elton John on Sign from Above is actually the guest that kind of comes on and Gaga works the best with. And I think obviously they have a better working relationship. I think Elton John is like her godfather or something like that.
Yes, something like that.
Which is kind of crazy. But I think they had really good chemistry in that song. I think that song, Sign from Above, is one of my favorites, except for the breakdown at the end felt really strange and out of place. But the rest of the song is unassailable to me. I think it's a really strong.
So that's a weird one because that has like the most producers and most co-writers of any song on the track list. And it definitely felt cobbled together for me. But for the most part, I think it works. And I do like how it sounds. I think for me, the highlights are probably some of the solo tracks, though. Enigma and Replay, and then 911 and Plastic Doll. Those two 1-2 punches during the track list really stood out for me. And
it's
Replay
funny
had this really weird moment for me of pointing with melody where when Gaga's voice starts to build, I think when she's getting to the chorus for the first time, I immediately was taken back to Scar singing to the hyenas in The Lion King.
Oh shit!
I was like, I don't know why that's where it got to me, but just like the way her like, you know, she's such a dynamic voice and she can like really effortlessly like demonstrate a lot of range in the middle of a track. And the way she did it just reminded me of when Scar's singing, what is it? Be Prepared, right?
Yeah.
Like when he's building up to Be Prepared in that song, I was like, wait, why is this the vibe I'm getting? But I don't know. Maybe she'd find that as a compliment because that's weird. I don't know.
It's funny, as you were kind of listing these 1-2 duos, you didn't even list the one that was probably my favorite standout, which I think actually speaks to just the strength of the album overall. But I really enjoy Free Woman and Fun Tonight. I think that right in the middle, actually going back to that sequencing critique, would have made a lot more sense like at the end to have those. But I think it's important, one, for us to acknowledge happy Pride Month to all of the people out there who celebrate Pride Month. And this album was basically made for Pride Month. Like
there's some drag anthems in this.
Yeah, and it's weird because this is probably going to be the most subdued Pride celebration in a couple of years, only because of the current COVID situation and possibly because of the protests. I'm not sure if that will impact it at all, but this feels like Gaga could have just been like everywhere during Pride Month, and now it's probably going to be a little bit subdued, but still, I think there's so many tracks on here that even the last two, like Babylon's a little strange to me, but 1000 Doves I think is a really strong chorus and hook and just enjoyable listen. So I think there's a lot to really dig into here, and kind of just par for the course with Gaga. What she puts out is always quality. It's just about what level is it top Gaga, or are we getting like mid-tier Gaga, which is still excellent.
Right. Yeah. Even art pop is a mess, but it's a beautiful mess and has like a smash like applause on it at the end of the day. Still, honestly, I think my favorite song though, the song I've definitely listened to the most this weekend, would be Alice, which is the first proper song on the album after the first interlude. And Alice is almost like a false flag because it gives this suggestion of like deep house and really upbeat shit. And only a few songs later you get Fun Tonight, which, spoilers, is not about having fun. But Alice, I mean, when she's like taking me to Wonderland, I'm just like, say less, please. Like, I'm with this. This song goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on here. And I mean, it's funny, this album was delayed, I think, 7 weeks due to coronavirus, which ultimately is not that big of a delay. I was kind of expecting a much longer wait for this after the delay out of April.
Mm-hmm.
But she did reveal that she had a secret Coachella set planned, which would have been right around the release date. And obviously that's tough. And as you spoke to the Pride Month implications. So it's definitely not what you wanted, but it's still going to debut #1 for her. And Blackpink will get their highest charting song to date in the States. So that, at the end of the day, it's still a major dub for Lady Gaga. I'm really happy with it.
It is, but fuck 2020 for taking away that secret Gaga performance. That would have broken the internet.
I agree.
Damn. But definitely a great album. We're gonna add. We already have "Stupid Love" on the best of 2020 playlist. We'll probably be adding 1 or 2 more. Definitely close to, if not in my top 10 of the year so far, which we should probably do in a couple weeks, like our check-in of best albums and movies and TV of the year. So stay tuned for that. And I wonder if any of the TV shows we're about to talk about will be on there. And we're going to start with Mrs. America on FX. Phyllis, our girl Phyllis, Dave. So we spoke about the first episode of Mrs. America. Actually, first couple of episodes, because I think they dropped the first 3 altogether, or at least within a couple of days.
Yeah, they did on Hulu.
And I think we were just really impressed with the cast telling the story of the fight for the ERA and the 2 opposing sides of it, kind of exposing details of the story that I think a lot of people probably were not aware of. And I felt like that kept up throughout the series. I felt like the series was really well done. I do think there were a couple of moments at the end that I found to be peculiar choices, and kind of left me wanting a little bit more, feeling a little bit confused. But overall, I was really impressed with this miniseries. And Kate Blanchett and Rose Byrne and Sarah Paulson, all I thought gave I actually think everybody else in this gave phenomenal performance. So nothing really too bad to say about it. How are you feeling about Mrs. America?
Yeah. So 9 episodes later, obviously I think it's a complete success. And the obvious flags that people wave in the beginning about the show having this loaded cast playing all these famous historical figures, that hype was worth it because, as you said, everyone is really good. And the way this show is structured, we're basically covering the whole 70s, but we're going to these little flashpoints in all of these major figures' lives and their roles in the movement and in terms of the women's liberation movement in the 70s. And while I've seen criticism that we got too much Phyllis Schlafly, why couldn't we get more of some of the other people? I really enjoyed how it was structured, and here's the Gloria Steinem focused episode. Here's the Bella Abzug episode at the end, the Shirley Chisholm episode. It seemed to really get into what all these people were doing and what made them so different. And ultimately, uniting history with drama on TV, it's not new, but having it be, I think, this educational and entertaining is really impressive. This is definitely a show that inspires people to go on Wikipedia or just go on Slate and read about what's being portrayed episode to episode. For sure. I think that's easier said than done. You think of stuff like American Crime Story, for example, has lent a lot to that. FX in general was really good for this. But I think one of the underrated aspects is that when you're portraying feminism and the feminist movement, it's not a united front the whole time, right? They get into how Betty Friedan was not as sympathetic to the plight specifically of lesbians in feminism, and how there's a lot of intersectionality and a lot of conflict within certain movements. That is not a new idea. That is still the case today with stuff. And I think the way they highlighted that, again, through history, was really effective. And when you're doing it with amazing attention to period detail, really impressive makeup and hairstyling, and great actors, what's not to like?
Yeah, I beyond the acting being really, really good, just seeing what the real life people looked like, and compared to how they were made up in the show, which is really impressive. I mean, obviously, I think Phyllis Schlafly got a bit of a glow up. I think most people played by Cate Blanchett are going to get a bit of a glow up in that sense, but like Margot Martindale playing Bella Abzug, I felt like they looked very similar. And Margot Martindale, one of the best like female character actors,
absolutely fantastic in this.
Actors in general. She was just great. I thought Elizabeth Banks was good when she got some time to shine, and kind of I loved her showdown with Phyllis, and kind of how she, I think, brought to light the hypocrisy in Phyllis's message.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a really good job of using some of the characters that were written into the show, like Alice McRae, Sarah Paulson's character, to highlight the personal damage that this message had, and Phyllis's drive to gain political power and sway had on the people around her. I think my one critique, and I agree with your point about like the, I guess, file episodes or the focused episodes on each character worked really well. I wish that Sarah Paulson's episode had come a little bit sooner, because I felt like it coming so close to the end of the series and not being about an actual person who was really at the forefront of this fight, and more like a fictionalized character, kind of made it feel like we got to the end too quickly. Like I wanted a little bit more time in those last couple episodes to focus on what was going on with the other characters. But it may have also been just that kind of like the end credits said, or like the post credits said, the sway of the women's empowerment movement was never stronger than it was in the early 70s. And the time frame that they're portraying Sarah Paulson's episode, I believe, is like mid 70s to late 70s. So maybe there just was less story to tell with all these characters as they moved on to different ventures in their life. But overall, I thought this was really well done. Any particular episodes that stood out to you or that you just really liked?
Oh, interesting. I thought the Shirley Chisholm episode was great.
That's one
Shirley
I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people, they're such titans, right? I mean, I really liked Ari Gaynor playing Brenda Fagan when we see her debate with her husband, but also, getting into, I think, another alleyway within feminism and what was like at that time in terms of sexuality and monogamy and stuff like that. I like the Betty Friedan episode. I think Tracy Ullman did a really great job. And when we have the debate with Phyllis again, which really happened, you can see a different debate of theirs on YouTube right now, not the one we saw on TV. The way this, a lot of these characters were able to, I think, espouse the ideals of what was going on at the time in like really, I think, natural dialogue that made sense. I didn't really have an episode I disliked. I did like the Sarah Paulson episode at the end, when we actually get to the women's conference, the largest gathering of women in America at that point, right? And along those lines, I thought Kaylee Carter, who I really liked in Private Life, she played Pamela, another fictional character, and I think Pamela and Alice together, I guess in a sense they're like audience avatars, right? And I think the purpose of Alice is to present us with how the Phyllis Schlafly fight helped realign the political parties and make the modern conservative movement we know today. She kind of points out some of the tactics that are very familiar to us now in terms of misrepresenting facts and just basically saying stuff that's not true, and really doubling down on rhetoric first and foremost. A lot of things are very familiar to us at this point, and you see Alice kind of raising an eyebrow to this, cozying up to white supremacists or other undesirable people because, well, they'll still help your cause if you just let them do their thing out of your control, kind of thing. I really appreciate that. And you get a lot of like Jesse Helms is in the background of this show. That was a straight up segregationist senator from, I believe, South Carolina, right? And in the end, you get Paul Manafort and Roger Stone showing up, which is what, like, I believe the only cameo that Davi Waller said she wasn't able to verify actually happening. Like she couldn't confirm that Phyllis Schlafly met them, but they were on the Reagan campaign, so it might have been plausible. Every other cameo evidently was sourced. And
pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot here. I've been recommending it to people. I think it was really impressive.
Yeah, no, I can't speak highly enough of the show. I think this is a total triumph for FX on Hulu, and definitely a show that I think I would want to rewatch because I feel like there's so many little aspects of it that you can go back and catch little things again. So,
I mean, and there's people that just kind of pop in, right? Like Elizabeth Banks has a relatively small presence on the show, as was it Jill Rucklehouse, I believe his name is.
Yep.
Nacy Nash is Flo Kennedy. She's just kind of in the background of a few episodes, but there's so many important figures that we just get a little bit of a taste of, but that's because this was a show that was so widespread, and Rose Byrne actually also really impressed me. She's someone I've always really liked, but never really was wowed by before. She's just been good generally for a while now. I thought she was really nailed like the Gloria Steinem cadence, and obviously the hair was so perfect. Yeah, man. Also, shout out the term "libbers." That always made me laugh. Such a product of the time, I guess.
Yeah, it's it was definitely I don't know, enlightening, but also scary to see that cycle and the way that the messaging was so similar to certain messaging that we see today. On a weekend, which we already kind of prefaced, where things were already pretty those final couple episodes I watched this weekend, when there really was portraying that message kind of coming to light and taking shape, I was just like, oh, man, it's just like, I need a bit of a palate cleanser. I did not get that palate cleanser with Killing Eve, Dave. Killing Eve season 3, we watched the first episode or two and talked about it. And, we kind of said season 1, masterclass in tension, TV making, relationship, kind of cat and mouse type relationship on TV. Season 2 kind of got away from that a bit. And I think we felt like the show was kind of losing its direction and relying, I think, too much on Jodie Comer just being absolutely stunning to watch as Villanelle. In season 3, I do think there's more to like here in terms of we get a lot more character development and they're building out the world a bit more. The first 2 seasons were so Eve focused, Eve and Villanelle focused, that to get some time with Caroline, to get some time with Constantine, I think really helped to build out the show. But I still felt like there was so much going on, so many pieces to this puzzle, and the pacing just felt all over the place at times. And I just found myself feeling like this was really disjointed season, even if it did have some really good moments, I thought. How are you feeling about season 3 of Killing Eve?
Yeah, I agree. I think the narrative is just kind of off the rails right now. I don't know what I'm supposed to be invested in. And it's not as bad as something like, say, Run, which really never established your goalposts and what you should care about. Right. But in the case of Killing Eve season 3, as you said, we are kind of jumping around a lot. And I did like that. And I think moment to moment, the show is genuinely, generally pleasurable because we have good acting and we're on all these different settings and locales around the world. It's fun to look at usually. But what's actually like going on, what the characters are actually doing, sometimes doesn't make sense. Sometimes it just feels contrived. And I think a big part of that for me has been Eve, which is a character that I've struggled with, like the purpose and direction of since we got away from the killing Eve part in season 1, quote unquote. And I think Jodie Comer, obviously really great. I think when Villanelle's killing stuff, it's still fun. And there's a lot of great settings once again, or really all throughout Europe. But, the Carolyn development, the Constantine development, I don't know. I don't really know if I care about that much. But like Carolyn's relationship with Yara Greyjoy, Emma Whalen pulling up, like I thought that was quite flat, really drawn out. And Constantine's thing with his kid, a little better, but
was it?
I liked Killing Eve most when season 1 because it's a flip on that spy genre.
Right.
You have all these touchstones of the spy genre with jet setting around Europe, the cat and mouse aspect, right? And you're flipping with some obvious things. We're modernizing it. It's a female assassin. There's some heteronormative things not present, right? Mm-hmm. But we're just kind of in the weeds, and the weeds aren't that fun. Like there's a lot of new characters. I wrote them all down. We got Dasha, who's probably the best of them. Yara Greyjoy's a miss. The MI6 boss who gets killed by Caroline at the end, completely worthless.
Yep.
All the reporters, I kind of like them, but because they're mainly connected to Eve, their usefulness kind of wanes for me. And Elena, I thought Elena was interesting, but we don't get a whole lot of her, so it's tough to make a big impression.
You know what I think left me really aggravated with this season was there were a couple of moments when you felt like they were really going to do something to shake the show up, right? Were they going to kill off Caroline in episode 3 or 4? Right. Was Constantine going to just die all of a sudden? And how was Villanelle going to then deal with that? Like the only father figure, the only parental figure she's ever really had, all of a sudden really being out of her life. And the show did the classic thing that we always criticize shows for, is that they fake you out with it, right? So they say, like, the Villanelle walks up to the car, shoots, and she kills the guy in the back seat, the 12 guy. But you think for a second Kruger. Caroline's dead, and I really was like, oh shit. Mm-hmm. Like, what the, like, this is really going to be like a plot mover and something that's going to really push even Villanelle's relationship in a different direction. Nope. She actually didn't kill Caroline, and the guy's dead in the back. Caroline's fine. Constantine has a heart attack, doesn't actually die. And Villanelle had to make a choice then. And Eve is the one that saves him. Like, it's very strange. And like, just, and even at the end, like if Caroline had killed Constantine, I would have felt like, okay, I feel like the show's taking some chances here. But in the end, it feels like what they really just set up was that Eve was this person that was up here in season 1, Villanelle's down here. Season 2 kind of brings them a little bit more here, but now the show is just kind of flipping that dynamic. And Eve is totally destructing as a human being, moving more into that socio-psychopath role. And you see Jodie Comer as Villanelle building out her emotional and psychological maturity, which is just kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like that's really what season 1 set up. I know that there was like that dynamic, but I guess I just didn't expect the show to go this way, and it leaves me feeling a bit like, do I even want to really finish this ride? It's a slow ride too. I think that's the thing. Some of the episodes really dragged this season. I thought some of the bottle ones were good, like Villanelle going home and finding her family in Russia. I felt like that episode was actually pretty interesting.
I'll never see Elton.
Yeah, and there were some moments. Like I really liked when Villanelle was kind of teaching that guy how to be an assassin, and he totally messes it up as the clowns.
Stuff,
like
right.
that scene just in general, really, really cool and like really funny. And what a line from Villanelle, like, management is hard, like, or management right. sucks or whatever it is. Like that's great. But then there's a lot of moments where it's just like Eve running around trying to solve this mystery with her friends in the newspaper, and it just feels like whatever. Going back to the no stakes, Nico gets stabbed through the throat by Dasha and doesn't die. I was like, Nico has to die, man. Like,
yeah. Oh God, I was so annoyed with that, to be honest. It's like, and even Dasha survives the double whammy of the golf club and Eve's boot, right? Yep. It's like you're just so resistant to shaking things up. It's just frustrating. It's ultimately, it's a show it's less than the sum of its parts. There's still tons of things to like and tons of things that are done well, and yet we're getting diminishing returns, and that's frustrating. We know we're getting a season 4, a new showrunner once again. I don't necessarily blame the showrunners. I just blame it was hard to follow up season 1, which was more and more presently made clear that it was a self-contained thing.
Yeah.
Shout out the Barcelona scene when they're in the cable car over the Barceloneta. I rode in that cable car last year, and I can tell you, it's never with just two people. It's a busy place, but that was cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit disappointing, but I think I'm hopeful that they can find some direction. I hope it's also not the sort of thing that they just keep renewing. Like, come up with an ending to it, find a direction to the show, find what you want to say, and make it good.
If this was on Showtime, we would have 7 seasons no matter what. So I'm hopeful AMC, BBC America is a little more thoughtful.
Jodie Comer still is bae. Love her. Can't wait to see her in more things moving forward. But let's talk about another actress that I feel like has had a bit of an up and down career, and maybe we'll talk about that. I think we stand her for her music career a little bit more, and that's Janelle Monáe, who stars in season 2 of Homecoming, the Amazon Prime miniseries, I guess not miniseries, like just series, TV series. We reviewed season 1. Julia Roberts, Stephen James, Sam Esmail directed a good portion of the episodes, or at least was producing
all of them.
The episodes.
He shot all of them.
That's right. And man, I think what we liked about, at least what I liked about Homecoming season 1 is it was a story that I thought was pretty interesting and engaging. It wasn't a perfect season of television, but stylistically, it was just so encapsulating and gripping. And it kind of had this like love story, but also mystery at the heart of it. I thought it was just really a unique show. Season 2 has a unique structure, but I'm not sure there's something about it just didn't land as well with me. How are you feeling about season 2?
Yeah, I agree. I think Homecoming season 1 had a lot of things to like. Made my top 10 2018. I think for good reason, because as you said, Sam Esmail, by virtue of him directing it, you have this engaging, well-shot show that's very indebted to filmmaking of the past, because Sam is that kind of guy. And it's really great to look at, and the camera is engaging, with multiple POV shots and like split cams and stuff, and it's really cool. And Sam has always proven with Mr. Robot that he is a student of film past and brings that into his work, and that's awesome, and he's able to do it well. Top of that, the show in general was just, it was a throwback to like 70s paranoia thrillers. It's a mystery, but it's not a mystery box that we know of now. It's not really about the mystery. It's more about those vibes. And heck, even the score was lifted. The needle drops were lifted from famous movies and moments of the past. Season 2, we have an original score. But I think for me with Homecoming season 2, Julia Roberts is out, Janelle Monáe's in, but like that core dynamic of season 1 between Roberts and James kind of drives the narrative. And again, not the narrative's too complicated or layered, but it's just like good enough and has just enough forward momentum to keep you interested and enjoy watching all the engaging things Sam is giving you, and like just having that 70s vibe. And season 2, I think, is trying to do that. It's just naturally not going to be done as well. Sam is not directing these episodes. Julia Roberts is not here anymore. Bobby Cannavale has a brief appearance. He's also gone. I like Janelle Monáe, but I also felt like her character just wasn't as strong as Heidi Bergman, who Julia Roberts plays. Yeah. So it's weird because, another strength of Homecoming is that it's a 30-minute drama. Pretty rare, but when it's done right, it's probably the best form of TV. Think of Atlanta. But this was a really small-scale story. And season 2 is told in a weird, out-of-order structure in terms of Janelle Monáe's memory. But because we saw season 1 and we are familiar with what Geist has been doing and up to, nothing is really that surprising. And because the show isn't as successful at establishing those throwback vibes, because Sam isn't there, the story's a little different, it's less fun to build up to some reveals that we kind of already see coming because we know what happened in season 1. So I guess I would say I'd let down, but it's short enough that I think it's okay. It's weird. It's like an addendum to season 1, if anything. It felt so much less grand than season 1.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely felt less grand, and I feel like maybe pacing is just the thing I'm stuck on today, but I also felt like just the structure of the season, um, and mostly the dynamic of Janelle Monáe's character, Alex, kind of figuring out the mystery of what happened to her. Almost just like it felt like it took too long to get there. Like you kind of see where it's going by I think the third or fourth episode. Even by the second one, I think you can kind of tell like something happened where. What's her name? Sorry, Hong Chau's character asked her to help or something along those lines, and Janelle Monáe doing a favor and just turned bad. But it takes until the second to the last episode for that story to get completely told, and then the last episode is Stephen James kind of putting into action this plan to kind of get his revenge in a sense, and it just feels like that kind of comes together too quickly. I wish there had been a little bit more time with Stephen James individually, because I feel like that character is the one I find the most engaging from both seasons. I felt like his dynamic with Janelle Monáe was when things really crackled the most on screen, and even though Janelle Monáe plays a gay character, or she may be bisexual, that's never really explicitly said, but she's in a gay relationship, it still felt like the chemistry between her and James is just like one of the things that I found really appealing about this season. So I wanted to see a little bit more of that, or build that, I don't know, dynamic out a bit. I also felt like Joan Cusack, I don't know, she just didn't do it for me. I didn't really find her great, and it might just be I don't really dig her. So something about her just kind of takes me out of it sometimes. I think I find her a bit goofy, and that's not like anything that she's doing wrong. I think it's just kind of how I see her for some reason. But she definitely, I think, came across as like despicable, which is what that character is supposed to be, obviously, like the government coming in and turning everything to shit. I found Hong Chau to play a really good, I guess, sociopath. Like she just seems like she just gets a little taste of power and just like starts controlling everything. Her manipulation is incredible. So the performances are good, but I think just overall the story was not as engaging to me. And for it to be kind of drawn on this mystery of what happened to Alex / Jackie for so much of the season, then to kind of speed things up just felt a little frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that first episode, Janelle Monáe waking up in a rowboat with no oars in the middle of a lake. And then she goes to that bar, meets the guy with the oxygen tank, goes to the hotel. He kind of like betrays her. I was like, that was a really good first episode.
Yeah.
And we just kind of really got away from it and kind of left the momentum away. I agree about Hong Chau. She has that small role in season 1 as the guy's secretary. And then we kind of get like a pseudo stinger at the end of season 1 where she like put the clamps on Bobby Cannavale's character. And then we learn in season 2 that she actually just kind of finessed the plug to pull that off. And she really was just a secretary. She wasn't this like overseer of Geist or anything. And I was like, wait a minute, this show's actually like about gaslighting the whole time, because then we find out what Janelle Monáe's character does in terms of being like a crisis manager for corporate companies to mitigate political for employee complaints, right? And then she tries to do that to Stephen James for other reasons, right? It's like, oh wow, this is all about like people manipulating each other. This is kind of cool. But once we get into the memory loss stuff and the timeline, the incongruous timeline, it's like got away from it again. I like Joan Cusack more than you, but I would say her part just kind of underwritten, kind of one note. She just doesn't have a whole lot to do, just beyond kind of being a boogeyman in the background. Yeah. Similarly, she's most connected with Chris Cooper's character, who plays the actual Geist, the person who found the company. And you get his character, but he also was kind of underwritten, pretty, I wish his involvement with Stephen James in that plot, as you said, if we got more of that was a little more fleshed out. I think it would have been cool because it would have hit for both of those characters, but we don't get enough time with Geist to really understand what he's feeling beyond being defensive of his company in terms of like, how the military stepping in. He has like all this like disdain for the people that work for him and how his company is like really, I guess, opportunistic, I guess.
Yeah.
They're just really brief moments when he's like talking to Hong Chow and other people. So yeah, it's kind of a mismatch, and it's like tonally it's trying to do what season 1 does, but it definitely does not land quite as hard.
One aspect that was different from the first season, like you already talked about, was the score for this. Was all original. I felt like the score actually was one of my favorite parts. I felt like it was unique and really stood out, and I felt like it really played well into each scene. So I do want to say that, but I feel like Ishmael's presence is sorely missed. I think it's pretty clear he took a big step back and probably just had his name attached to this. Same with Julia Roberts, obviously. So it seems like season 3 is coming, because Stephen James is setting out with a list of names. So something's probably going to come about there. We'll see.
Yeah, was it Eli Horowitz and Micah Bloomberg who had the podcast too, and then developed that for season 1, and they of course wrote season 2 as well. They said to EW that they have ideas and we're working on season 3, but it has not been officially announced yet. But I really see no reason that Amazon wouldn't bring the show back once again. And in a sense, it is cool that we'll probably shift POVs once again. And I think short stints on TV in the peak TV era are always what is appealing to big name actors we associate with film. That's how Julia Roberts was on the show in the first place. That's how Cate Blanchett got into Mrs. America. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't get something really exciting to fill a certain void in season 3. I'm curious if they bring back Stephen James, who kind of just gets like some catharsis for what his character goes through in season 1. So I don't know if we need him to come back in terms of like there being any holes for his character to fill. Yet if we don't bring him back, there's not much of any connection to the first season, second season.
I think if nothing, actually, I don't know if this is the way they're going to go. I think season 3 could take a bit of a left turn and be a lot more action oriented, because it seems like he's going to tell the people on that list what happened to inform them of the treatment they got. And I feel like the government trying to cover that up and stop him, it could almost become like a Bourne type thing where like he doesn't fully know his identity, but he has all these skills from the army type of thing. Right. I don't know. That's like a hope for it, I think, but it would be a huge tonal shift for the show. So.
And for me, I'm just trying to understand, like, does the company of Geist have a presence moving forward? I feel like we've kind of explored all this, right? Mm. Like Cooper, Mr. Geist, he burns it to the ground, metaphorically speaking. Right. And everyone else we have any relationship with at the company seems to be gone. So, and there's no surprises about like those drugs, that what they do. We got that. We saw the faults of already understanding that too much in this season. So if we don't have Geist, then it's just like what? It's like these vets versus the government. Like I'm not sure. I'm just curious where they'll try and take it. The creators did say to EW that they had a lot of different ideas, so they're clearly figuring it out. But I'll still give it a chance. Again, 30-minute drama, especially when they're willing to do less than 10 episodes. It's not too much of an investment. So
no, and this is still good TV. It's not as good as season 1, but it's still good. I wouldn't say this is like Killing Eve season 2 bad. I think this is still engaging. So, anyways, Dave, as we wrap up, what's next? What do we got for next week?
We're going to get to Space Force on Netflix out now, as well as the season finale of Betty on HBO. Shirley, the Elizabeth Moss Oscar contender, will be on Neon. From Neon will be on Hulu and VOD. I'm excited for that. It comes out on Friday. There's an EP from Flatbush Zombies. There's Run the Jewels 4, which
hell yeah,
you're going to feel incredibly prescient given the current times. Looking forward to that. And I'm also excited for Yvonne Orgy's debut stand-up comedy special on HBO, of course, from Insecure. So some good stuff coming up.
Definitely some good stuff. Stay tuned. Stay safe out there. That's the main thing. We want to see you next week and the week after. So do what you got to do to express yourself and to speak out for what you believe in, but be safe. Catch you next week.